Now, I want to dig into more on what is Donald Trump thinking? Well, let's bring in someone who might have an idea of what he's thinking, though I don't think anybody wants to live inside a former president's head. It's Michael Cohen, former attorney for Mr. Trump. He's also author of a new book, Revenge: How Donald Trump Weaponized the U.S. Department of Justice Against His Critics. Michael, I appreciate you coming in. Look, I want to start with something Maggie Haberman. Nice to see you. Maggie Haberman said, which is, you've seen when Donald Trump is under siege, you've been with him, and he's sort of focused on different things. You've got, right now, this week, he's had the Jean Carroll situation. You've got the Mar-a-Lago documents. You've got the January 6th committee. And she said something that I was like, boy, I can't wait to ask Michael about this, that he seems to be obsessed with the Jean Carroll defamation suit more than anything else. Help me figure this out.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that that's exactly accurate. I think he's obsessed about everything right now. I think every single one of these cases are keeping him up at night. You know, I was listening to the earlier segment, and that 13 or 14-page document that Donald had issued to member Benny Thompson over at the committee is very interesting. The very first words underneath, of course, the presidential seal, which he has now replaced for the fake Donald Trump, you know, Scottish something seal that he would use all the time. But the interesting thing, it says peacefully and patriotically in capital words. I mean, those are two words that I don't think anybody would ever attribute to Donald Trump. Peacefully? Really, why don't you ask the people like the Capitol Police officers that showed up the other day to the committee whether or not he thought it was peaceful and whether or not that's patriotic.
You know, Michael, when you worked for Trump and he didn't like something maybe that I said on air, right? I might, or he didn't like, or he thought I needed to be informed better about something. He would rattle off a missive. Walk me through how he does that. Is he like dictate it to somebody? Did you have to have, like, was that Sam's job when he would do these things? Because clearly it feels like he's ranting into a phone and somebody has to transcribe it. Is that how it works?
Not necessarily. So it's not as if you didn't say things that irritated Donald, and I would end up, you know, having my phone ring, and it would be Rona or one of the other executive assistants asking me to come to Mr. Trump's office. And I would come in, and I always had a pad and a paper with me. And he would turn around and he would say something like, "Did you hear what Chuck Todd said about me? That needs to be corrected." So I said, "Sure." And he would basically hand me a fax or a copy of your statement, right. And then he would ask me to draw something up. I would then draw something up. I would come back in. He would look at it. He would make changes with his marker onto it, and then we would talk through it for a minute or two. He would finally approve it, and then it would go out. Now, I promise you that Donald in his entire life never, ever produced a 14-page document for anything. So this one was obviously written by, like, Steve Miller or one of the other missives that he has working for him. I mean, it is, I don't even know the best word to describe it other than insane. I mean, it's just rantings and more rantings. And you're right, it does not touch on the topic that this document is supposed to relate to, which is whether or not the man is going to appear before the January 6th hearing. And I'm willing to put a couple dollars on this one with you. Chuck, we'll do our normal $1 bet on this one. He's not showing up under any circumstance. Right. We've already seen this game play out how many times? Oh, I can't wait to be able to testify. I can't wait to do this. And does he ever do it? The answer is no.
Let me ask you this. Look, you've probably asked your own question this yourself, which is, why do people stick by Trump for as long as they do?
You know, I've answered this question a lot, and people think I'm being humorous, but I'm not. It's because we're stupid. For some reason, we fell into the cult of Donald J. Trump. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of energy around it. When he needs something from you, he makes you feel as if though you're the single most important person in the world and that only you are capable of doing something. Now, you've seen what happened to me. You've seen what's happening now to Rudy Giuliani. You see what's happening to Eastman. You see what's now happening to Christina Bobb. You see what's happening to Sidney Powell and a multitude of other people, all of whom I would hope, including now Mark Meadows, would have listened to when I said before the House Oversight Committee, I know the game that you're playing, and it's not going to work out for you the same way it didn't work out for me. You can't run this playbook, especially against me, and I know it because I wrote it. So, heed my warning. Did they heed it? No. And every single one of them are in trouble right now. Every single one.
It's interesting. It always fascinates me. A lot of people go into his world thinking they can outsmart Trump. He's not bright. I can do this. Trump seems to know that's what people... Does he assume everybody around him is just trying to get something from him, which is why he doesn't get taken as much by them?
No. He does believe that everybody is self-motivated, and he believes that notion because he is self-motivated. In fact, the entire presidential race was not supposed to be about winning. It was supposed to be about the branding opportunities that would come from the campaign, meaning that it was supposed to be the greatest infomercial in the history of U.S. politics. So he knows that everyone is self-motivated. The reason he manages to get people is and they get into trouble and he doesn't, is because he doesn't do anything by email. He doesn't do anything, by text message.
Right.
He has no fingerprints, something he learned from Roy Cohen, and he doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about anyone other than himself, and he's willing to throw you under the bus in order to protect himself.
Very quickly, you're one of the few who doesn't think he's going to run, but if he runs, you're personally worried about your safety. One, why don't you think he's going to run? And two, you really think he would resort to violence when it comes to you?
Yeah. So let me answer the first part of the question. I don't believe, and I've said continuously, that he's not going to run. If he runs, the great grift that he has figured out how to create is going to be gone, because every dollar then has to go into the campaign fund. And unlike the PAC, which he's permitted to keep 90 cents of every dollar at his own discretion for use, that all goes away. And he can't afford to lose that grift. Second, he doesn't want to be a two-time loser, which he knows statistically he cannot win. Despite the fact he has a big portion of the Republican, he does not have the opportunity to win in a general election. Now, as far as my safety, I talk about this at length in the book Revenge, because what Donald Trump has figured out, whether it's for Donald Trump or the next Donald Trump, which I refer to as the 2.0, they figured out how to weaponize the Department of Justice to go against their critics, meaning, you may remember when I was unconstitutionally remanded back to prison because I wouldn't waive my First Amendment constitutional rights. That's just the very, very beginning. And when I say that he will resort to violence, no, not him. But what he does like a mob boss is he gives the okay, the green light to his supporters, many of whom are not they're not sane. I mean, these are not stable people who may interpret his wishes in a very negative light. And that's like why he said that he could walk down Fifth Avenue and kill someone and get away with it. He really wasn't talking about himself. He was talking about one of his supporters doing something for him.
Michael Cohen, appreciate you coming on the book. I'll say it one more time. I know you're trying to sell a book, Revenge, How Donald Trump Weaponized the U.S. Department of Justice Against His Critics. Appreciate you coming on, sharing your perspective with us,
Good to see you again.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.